Hello and welcome to Section 101. I'm your co-host Ben Lyle Schwartz.
And Ronnie Decker.
And today we are joined by Mr. Charlie Wronski. And we'll be going over the baseball MLB Season Preview. Got all of our predictions. And we'll be kicking things off with the American League division winners. And in the AL East, I have the Baltimore Orioles. I think this team was on the cusp last season. They're young. They have cheap contracts with all their young players, so they can go out, get pieces at the trade deadline, which I think is going to be huge in an AL East that is very competitive this year. And I think the big go with the Orioles is that they have cash. And if you get a team that ends up being a bust and doesn't do that well, they're going to have pieces that they can ship off, and I think that this team is built for success, and they were close last season. They'll get over the hump, and they'll win it this season. Ronnie?
Yeah, I had that as well. I had the Orioles winning this division. I feel like it's going to be a really close one this year, especially with the Yankees making a lot of good moves in the offseason. But the Orioles have probably the best rotation in this division with Corbin Burns, Kyle Bradish, Grayson Rodriguez, and John Means as their fours. And then they have a lot of young guys coming up from the farm system that are looking really good, like Jackson Holliday. And then their bullpen, too, leading up. You have the leadoff guys like Jonathan Helsney. Then you have your ending guys, your closer, Craig Kimbrell, and your setup man, Yennier Cano, who look really good this year.
Cano was great.
Yeah, he was great. He was one of the better pickups for them last year. And their position players, too. I mean, Adley Rutschman, you'll see what I think about him later, but I have a big year coming for Adley. Their first base position, they have Ryan Mountcastle, who should be pretty solid. And then, I mean, obviously at second base, it's looking like I think that Jackson Holliday will make the opening day lineup, and it's looking like that. He's played very well during spring training. And then you got their outfield, which is Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, and Santander, and they're all pretty solid. I mean,
that team is built to win.
I feel like this is a team that's going to make, like you said, a very big trade at the deadline to really improve their odds at going all the way this year.
Yeah,
Charlie?
Yeah, I think I'm excited to see a young team, see how they all work together. I think the addition of Corbin Burns is obviously good skill-wise, but also good to have a veteran on an ultimately young team. I'm excited to see Gunnar Henderson. I think he's a guy who's going to make some strides this year. You know, an average or slightly above average player last year, but I think a guy who has MVP potential eventually if he keeps developing and turns into the player that he was projected to be when he came into the league.
Yeah. So you have the Orioles winning the division.
I do. I think we have a good mix of young studs with guys who know their way around the league, guys who have built up a routine who will just spread the good juju and the good vibes to the younger guys and create a good clubhouse atmosphere as well as skill on the field.
Yeah. Next up, we have the pity party of the MLB, the American League Central Division, which was probably my toughest pick. And I ended up going with the Twins for really no particular reason apart from the fact that everybody else is rebuilding. And the AL Central is basically a rebuilding stage. The Twins last year had good pieces. They made a good run in the playoffs. I think they got some guys at the deadline, and they had guys coming they played very well in that postseason, and they had guys on the rise. And I think in a division that is not good, as I said, it's the pity party. Like, this is not a division that you expect a world champion to come out from every year. So I got the Twins winning for simply the reason that the rest of the division is just incompetent.
Yeah, so I do agree with the Twins winning the division, but I just want to highlight the Royals. I feel like they have a good chance in this one. This division's really going to come down to the last day in the MLB season. So I feel like the Royals they made a lot of offseason moves this year, and they had a good progression with Bobby Witt Jr. Obviously. He's one of my MVP candidates this year. I feel like he's going to have a crazy breakout year after an insane year last year. But yeah, I just think we all need to watch out for the Royals this year. But the Twins, I feel like they're going to win it. They have a lot of power. They hit the ball hard. They hit the ball far. And if Byron Buxton can stay healthy the entire year and play
which is a
big if. And if he can play to his full potential, I feel like it won't even be close. I feel like the Twins are going to run away with this division if he's healthy.
Yeah, so for the best of the worst, I'm going to have to disagree with you guys. I personally have the Cleveland Guardians, and that is Not a choice based off offensive production, obviously, but a choice purely based off the pitching staff.
Yeah.
I think Tristan McKenzie coming back from injury is a guy who is kind of a sleeper in the MLB. I think he has Cy Young potential. And you match him with Shane Bieber, and I think that makes a pretty good 1-2 punch for your first 2 games of the series. So I think that 3rd game, 4th game might be rough for them, but I think the first 2 they'll at least hold their own. And obviously you have Stephen Kwan, debatably the best on-baseman in the MLB besides Luis Arias. And then you have right behind him an order that can get guys in. You have Jose Ramirez, a guy who puts the ball
underrated
in play.
player in the league.
He's one of the more underrated.
Nobody talks about. He's always in the MVP conversation.
Yeah, you have Josh Naylor, Emmanuel Clase, guys who can put the ball in play and who have experience in the league. I think that punch can bring them to the top of the division, which shouldn't be too much of a challenge.
And they close games well, too, with that good bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm just interested to see they have a new coach this year, if they're going to be as good as they were in the years before. Obviously, last year was a bit of a disappointment, but we'll see.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the White Sox, and they have a chance to win. All right, AL West. I got the Astros. At this point, it's going to take an exceptional run from any team to beat the Astros, who somehow, against all odds, find ways to be good every year. I say it time and time again, they're not good. They prove me wrong consistently. This is a team that doesn't struggle with many things. They have good pitching. They've always had good hitting. And in an AL West, it is going to be competitive, and I think there's a chance for a couple teams to take down the Astros. I'm not ready to say that they're going to lose the division, and that's why the Astros.
Yeah, I have the same feeling. I mean, it's the Astros. They're always one of the better teams in the league. They're always one of the best teams in MLB, and I feel like it's their pitching this year that's going to have to lead them to victory. I mean, you have the fine wine, Justin Verlander. He just gets better with age. Framber Valdez, I'm expecting a good year from him. I feel like his potential is to be a Cy Young caliber player, but he hasn't really shown it yet. I feel like he's going to have a big breakout year this year. Christian Javier he was a little bit disappointing last year. He was my Cy Young pick last year, but kind of disappointed me, let me down.
And the thing is, they still had a great season last year without Javier.
And they got Josh Hader this year, who's going to close games for them.
Oh, that team's
Probably,
scary.
in my opinion, still the best closer in baseball.
If he's healthy, yeah.
If he's healthy, if he's 100%, if he's good again. But he showed it last year. He was one of the better closers in the game. And then I would just want to highlight their catcher, Yanir Diaz, who's going to be their opening day catcher. He's pretty young, but he had a really good year last year, and I expect him to be even better this year and really lead them over the hump.
Yeah, I agree with you guys there. I think that's a division where there's a lot of talent and also a lot of teams who can't really hang. I think that the Houston Astros are the best in that division. I think that starting rotation is just absolutely dangerous, and they have guys to clean it up. I mean, we obviously see they have absolutely no problem scoring runs the past couple years. Definitely not an issue for them. Yordan Alvarez, one of the best players in baseball right now, if I do say so myself. But also at the same time, I think you have to acknowledge that the Texas Rangers are a dangerous lineup this year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Team that'll definitely hang, and it's pretty close to being a toss-up between those two teams. I think that's going to be a division that'll be fun to watch throughout the year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So now our wildcard teams, which is our second place team in each division. In the American League East, I have the Yankees. I think this is a team in a division that could go all the ways, could go to the Rays, could go to the Blue Jays, but the Yankees signing Juan Soto, Juan Soto and Aaron Judge back-to-back is a nightmare for pitchers. The Yankees have always had issues with pitching. But I think if you add a guy like Juan Soto, if you have Gleyber Torres get that strikeout rate down, and if he starts putting the ball in play more, it's a dangerous team that is going to be filled with veterans this year. Aaron Judge is still underrated. He's slept under Shohei. He's been the second place in MVP voting, and he is. The Yankees are they're going to be good this year, but, I wouldn't be shocked if a team like the Blue Jays or Rays just had a better year than them, but I got the Yankees as second place.
Also, Giancarlo Stanton is having a dangerous spring training.
Oh, yeah,
he looks a lot healthier,
he had three homers. Each of them went over 400 feet, and the last one was hit at over 120 miles an hour. So it's a team that if they get hot at the right time, good luck stopping that offense.
Yeah, in the East, I also had the Yankees. I feel like the Blue Jays could also make a run for it, but the Yankees, this lineup is just so impeccable. It's so good. You have Juan Soto, you have Aaron Judge. You're not going to be able to walk Juan Soto with Judge right behind him.
You're not walking.
You're going to have to you're going to have to pick your poison, honestly. The only way I could see this going wrong is with the pitching. I heard news this morning, Garrett Cole is expected to have season-ending surgery this year because of that injury he had during spring training. So I don't know what's going on with that, really. But if he can come back towards the end, it's going to be close. But, yeah, they're probably going to trade for some pitching at the deadline. I'd expect maybe a Pablo Lopez, Jesus.
Yeah, you know what the Yankees always have? They got that money.
They got the money.
They have
the resources.
They have money.
But they have a lot of guys, too, coming up that are really young in the outfield that are looking amazing, like Jason Dominguez, the Martian, who should blow up this year. He's going to have a great year in that lineup.
Yeah, I got kind of a bold pick here. I got the Toronto Blue Jays, and I think that will be close, but I think they'll take it by a wide enough margin. I think the biggest thing with the Blue Jays is they have the assets. It's whether they're managed correctly. I think they have made some moves through their general manager that are interesting. They're getting more facilities in places that they already have great players. So, I mean, this infield is absolutely dangerous. I mean, Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, Vladimir Guerrero, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and the offseason pickup of Justin Turner in the DH spot. I think that's pretty dangerous, 1 through 5. And also, we look at guys like Kevin Kiermaier, George Springer, and one of the biggest flying under the radar guys in the MLB is Dalton Varsho, a guy who has a man out of Wisconsin who has is originally a catcher, but one of the best defensive outfielders in the corner outfield that there is. A guy who is a lot of singles, a lot of doubles, some good offensive and defensive production coming out of him.
And if he can get that power up like he was in Arizona, hitting a ton of home runs, they're gonna be dangerous.
Yeah. In the AL Central, I got the Cleveland Guardians coming in second place for the sole reason. And I will talk about another team from the AL Central just a little bit later, but I think that the Cleveland Guardians, they have the team. And like Charlie said earlier, Stephen Kwan, like, the guy he's an on-base machine. And if you get into the 9th inning, and if Emmanuel Clase can stay healthy, like, you're pretty much done. Like, the most saves in the MLB last season in the AL, and he's a dynamite closer and a team that has solid pitching in Shane Bieber, a guy who doesn't get talked about enough. And I think in an AL Central where they're going to be playing the Tigers, the Royals, and the White Sox on almost a 3 times a month basis, they have a good chance of making it like a good run at first place in this division.
Yeah, so my approach to picking their division wild card is basically just process of elimination. So I have the Twins in first. I feel like the White Sox are going to be god-awful this year. They're going to come in last in the division.
I agree.
The Tigers are on the come-up, I'd say, but they're a few years away still. So it was between the Guardians and the Royals for me. And in the end, it just came down to offensive production, and I feel like the Royals bring way more of that than the Guardians can. The Guardians have Stephen Kwan and J-Ram, and
Josh Naylor.
And
Bo Naylor. Brother.
But, I mean, you have an injury in there, and you're done. And if they're not good at the trade deadline, they're going to deal Shane Bieber. He's going to be gone if they're not good enough to make the playoffs. I
see Clase being the guy, because if you're a team that needs a closer, if a Devin Williams happens and your closer gets injured,
they're going to pay a lot.
You're going to want a closer.
But honestly, with the Royals, they just have the hitting. I mean, Salvador Perez, he's getting old, but he's still pretty good. Vinny Pasquantino coming back this year is huge for them. The Italian nightmare, he's just an amazing ball player, and I feel like he's going to be horrible for pitchers to face this year. Adam Frazier at second. I mean, he's shown some ups and downs, but he's a good veteran presence on that team. And again, Bobby Witt Jr., I expect a great year from him, an amazing year out of him.
Yeah, in the Central, I'm hopping on the small but mighty bandwagon that is the Kansas City Royals. I think that they've got some guys who fly under the radar but can really play. I mean, obviously Bobby Witt is their guy. Everyone knows he can play, but when we look at guys like MJ Melendez, I think those are guys that can really improve a team. And the additions of Hunter Renfroe and guys like that, I think they have a strong outfield. I think defensively they could use a little work, but I don't think offensive run production is going to be an issue for this team. I mean, they have veteran presence in Salvador Perez, some young legs behind the plate in Austin Nola, a guy who, with the Padres, was great. A great defensive player. Obviously, we look at their 40-man, and you see a lot of names you don't know, but I think the ones you do will make a big enough impact that this team can go a decent ways.
Yeah. In the AL West, a division that once again can go in a lot of ways, I have the Seattle Mariners coming in second place. I think it's going to be a 3-horse race between the Astros, Mariners, and I think a team you guys might have later. And I think Seattle is a team that has been historically great in the month of September. The last 2 years, they have had very, very good runs in September, and I think in the division where the Astros are lacking in places, they have a chance to make a jump, and they have a chance, especially playing the Oakland Athletics, a lot. You're gonna get wins, and I think the Mariners are a team that can capitalize if they get pitching. J-Rod, holy, that guy is freaking amazing. He is the centerpiece of this team. Sign him, give him all the money. He should be a forever Mariner. I think Seattle's got a chance to make a good dent in the playoffs.
Yeah, so I just want to say something about the Central. I don't see a wild card team coming out of the Central. It's going to be the Yankees, I think. And then my team in the West is the Rangers. But I also, like what you said about the Mariners is true. I feel like they have a chance to make a good run. I feel like their pitching's pretty good with Castillo, Kirby, and Gilbert. But if they can get another arm in there, I feel like they have a chance to run away with the division. But the Rangers, defending world champs, we know that they're good. We know they can play. It's going to depend on if they can stay healthy. Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer both have had some health concerns, especially with deGrom. And I believe deGrom is out for the year. Is that correct?
Can debatably make a middle-of-the-year comeback, but
unlikely.
Yeah. I would be pushing it with him and his injury history. I want to keep him for as long as I can.
And I honestly expected them to sign Josh Hader to be their closer, but they didn't really make any bullpen moves this offseason. So I think they need to go bulk up that bullpen if they really want to make a chance at back-to-back World Series, which hasn't happened in a long, long time. But I feel like the Rangers are going to make it to the playoffs this year, and I feel like it's going to be through that wild card spot. Like you said, it's the 3-team race between the Rangers, the Mariners, and the Astros, and it's going to come down to that final week in the season, and you can just dig deep and grind it out.
Yeah, I'm also on the Rangers train here. I'm agreeing with Ronnie. I think they're a team that they just produce so many runs it can be hard to lose. I think they have good enough pitching. If they gain deGrom back and Scherzer can stay healthy, that's a dangerous team right there. Obviously, Adolis Garcia is a guy who I don't know if he has MVP potential, but definitely has all-star potential and gaining knowledge of the game as he goes through the system. And then I think you can't overlook Corey Seager. That middle infield is just gross with Corey and Marcus Semien. It's hard to overlook that. Two guys who just have experience and have never really been on a down point in their career. Now, I do think you have to acknowledge the Mariners. I think Luis Castillo is one of the most underrated pitchers in Major League Baseball. But I think they might fall just a little bit short.
Here's my thing, is the Rangers don't have a closer. And I think there is a guy that if his team does bad, he's a great closer. He can get off to a good team, and that is Camilo Doval. I think if the Giants don't have a good season, he's the perfect guy. You can trade him to a team like the Rangers who needs a closer desperately. If the Rangers get Camilo Doval, they have a chance to win a division. I'm just questioning bullpens in an era where bullpens are so important. They don't have that.
I also think that trade becomes just a little bit more likely with the addition of Blake Snell to the Giants.
Yeah.
So for league champions, we're not going to go with a whole playoff tree. That would be very excessive. I got the Baltimore Orioles. I think this is a team. I talked about them earlier. They're young. They're energetic. They're cheap. I cannot tell you enough how you can compete with teams like the Astros and the Yankees who have endless money. You can have good young talent and sign people at the deadline. I got the Orioles making a run, winning the division. The pitching can hold up. The hitting is never in question. I don't think they'll win the World Series, but they have a chance to come out of the AL in a league where a lot of the teams we're naming have very apparent flaws and don't have farm systems. The Orioles have one of the best, most consistent farm systems. They have a chance. I think they're going to win the AL this year.
Yeah, I have the Orioles winning as well. I feel like with that, like you said, with their amazing prospect system, their amazing farm, I think they were rated the best by almost every major sports website. But if they need something at the deadline, like if they have a major injury that's holding them back, or if they need some more pitching, or if they need a bullpen guy, they have all the assets in the world to trade for someone like, I don't know, maybe who's going to be available. Like you said, Camilo Doval. He could be one of the guys that they go after.
He is going to be a
Shane Bieber kind of guy. Honestly, it could be
Verlander.
Justin
that
Verlander.
Guy is he's old.
It could be anybody. They have a ton of assets and they can go and get whoever they want. But this is also the hardest league. I feel this is harder than the NL to predict because there's just so many good teams in the American League. There are 7 teams I could honestly see making it out of the AL.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the Orioles are a great team. I think that I have concerns with how young they are. I think that type of run doesn't come from teams with this little experience. I mean, your 2 best infielders, debatably, are in their first 3 years of play, both. Yeah. So, for me, it's don't mess with Texas. I've got the Texas Rangers. I think that they're a team that energy in that stadium in the playoffs is just different. Their guys get hot at the right times. And I feel like in the playoffs, it comes down to producing runs because teams in the playoffs, everybody has at least 2 guys who can pitch. So I think scoring runs there, and you see him in the last postseason scoring 14 runs like it's nothing. So I think if the boys from Texas get hot at the right time, it might be over.
Yeah, don't let the Rangers get hot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's with all of these teams, though. I feel like if the Blue Jays get hot at the right time, they can make a run at it. And I don't even have them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't even have the Rangers coming out of the AL West as one of the top 2 teams. That's how good that division is. All right, now on to awards. MVP, ladies and gentlemen, the single most underrated player in the entire league. Got Kyle Tucker winning MVP in the AL. A guy that, in my opinion, is set under Jose Altuve, George Springer, Yordan Alvarez. This is going to be his year to take over a team that has a chance to make an impact and needs one guy to go over the top. I think he has most potential out of anybody in the AL, regardless of, age and stuff. I think this will finally be his year. I'm loving the Astros this year.
Yeah. I also have a bit of an underrated one. I feel like this is someone who people aren't expecting to win it right now, but he definitely has the potential to. And I have Adley Rutschman being my MVP this year.
Oh no!
I know you guys are gonna hate it. I know you guys are hating.
Young.
Adley's young, but you know what? I don't care. It's Adley Rutschman. He's a dog. I feel like he's the best young athlete we've seen in the MLB since Mike Trout. He's one of the best players in baseball right now. He is the best catcher in baseball right now. He will win the MVP, and that is the reason why the Orioles are going to the World Series this year, because of Adley Rutschman.
I'll take a big season, but you begged a pretty good case there. Wronski.
Yeah, not trying to bore anyone here, but I'm going to go with Juan Soto. I think he's the front runner. Everyone knows it, but hot spring training added to a competitive team for, you could say the second time in his career, but I'd say the first. I think that Padres team wasn't where they needed to be clubhouse-wise, so I think this is going to be an exciting team to watch, but I think he's going to be exciting to watch. I think the power's there, the speed's there, and the defense is there. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, I can see it.
There's so many options in this loaded AL. And now, Cy Young, ladies and gentlemen. I love the Houston Astros this year. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. Framber Valdez is winning Cy Young. Framber Valdez, once again, he's going to be the leader of this Astros rotation. He has consistently been good until the postseason. The postseason is what has been what's tarnished this guy's legacy. He's gonna get over that hump this year. The Astros are so good, but Framber Valdez, he's a regular season pitcher. I couldn't think of anybody else that has more potential to break out this year on a team that has got all the pieces to support him. Framber Valdez for Cy Young.
Yeah, so I have 2 guys that I think have the most potential. Framber did not make my list. I feel like he might have a couple rough patches in there, but I have Kevin Gausman, who is the odds-on favorite right now to win in the AL, and Pablo Lopez. I feel like I just want to focus on Pablo Lopez because everyone knows
I like
Kevin
that
Gausman. Kevin Gausman's a dog.
He's
gonna be a good pitcher this year. He's amazing. But Pablo Lopez is one of the better pitchers in this league that nobody knows about. He comes from the Marlins a couple years ago, and now he's on the Twins right now. And if he can have a really good year, I feel like the Twins have a solid chance of making it to the playoffs and making a deep push.
All right, this might be the most hated pick of the entire show. For the AL Cy Young, I've got Nathan Eovaldi.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, God, no shot. No.
I think this is a guy who...
Not even the best pitcher on his team.
I disagree with you. I think
he's the best. He's the best pitcher right now.
I think that this is a guy who has had right around a 1 whip his entire career. Added some spin this year and added almost 2 miles an hour in velo from what I've seen. So I think this is a guy who can shut down hitters and strike some fear in the hearts of guys who step in the box.
All right, sounds. Cy Young is up for grabs.
That's
this
a
year.
hot take. That's a hot take. I like that though.
Cy Young's up for grabs. All right. Let's all say Rookie of the Year together. I think there's a clear guy. All right.
I don't think so. I think you guys are gonna be shocked by mine.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Jackson Holliday.
Hey, I have Junior Caminero.
Oh!
Give it to me. Come on. The Rays star. He's a stud. He's one of the better players in the minor leagues this year. I think he's top 10. I know he's definitely top 10 in prospect rankings, but he's amazing. I feel like he's gonna start on opening day. If Jackson Holliday, he's also probably gonna start opening day. But I feel like he's going to be amazing this year. And then the guy we're all forgetting, Evan Carter, made a World Series push last year. Very few rookies can do what he did last year.
Very few people are Jackson Holliday.
Very few people are Jackson Holliday. But I don't know. When I'm right, when we're talking about this again in August, October, you guys will see.
I don't think Jackson Holliday needs much explanation from both of us. Like, he is freaking crazy.
Yeah,
He's had a great spring training. He's on a great young team. The Orioles are like, your Cy Young pick is from Rookie of the Year pick is from the Orioles too. That team is good and they're young. All right.
I also think he's got the swagger to go along with it.
Yeah.
I think he gets the people excited, and I think that's good for
voters. Voters are gonna like him.
Yeah. All right. Most improved player. Now, this is not necessarily. I couldn't think of a guy that really could make a push. So I thought, well, Juan Soto, right? Juan Soto, right? Good player. Get the K rate down, buddy. If you get that K rate down, MVP candidate right there. Most improved player, Juan Soto, get the K rate down.
I got Mike Trout. He's had a couple of injured years. MLB.
How can you improve Mike Trout?
MLB has dropped him down like almost. I think he's like their 15th best player. Mike Trout is still a top 5 player in baseball, and people are forgetting about him because he gets injured. He's gonna have a healthy year this year. He's gonna help the Angels, and he's gonna get out of Los Angeles because Artie Moreno is running that team into the ground, and he needs to be traded.
If he has a healthy year, I will do something crazy. He hasn't had a healthy year in forever. All right, what's your pick, most improved player?
Okay, so I went with a younger guy here. I've got Esteury Ruiz.
I like
the
the
A's.
guy. I like the guy.
I think he's a guy who speed's not a question. I mean, 40-bag seasons.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy who can be. Think of him as a worse Acuna, a much worse Acuna.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy who has.
He's Billy Hamilton, bud. He's fast.
Yes,
and he hits for contact.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think he's a guy who, from watching interviews, they're trying to bring in the power tool a little. I think he's a guy who could have a 2020 season at some point in his career. So I think he's on the come up.
2070.
I think
he could join that Acuna club.
I think Gunnar Henderson is another guy you have to mention. He's on the come up, a guy who had a pretty average season last year, but a guy I think who is going to improve and continue to improve.
It's just really hard for young guys like that to win most improved because people haven't had a long time to judge off of them. So I feel like that could happen. I just feel like guys like. What'd you say?
I got Jackson Holliday.
Yeah, you have Jackson Holliday for most improved?
Oh no, I got Juan Soto.
Yeah, Juan Soto and Mike Trout are two guys that I feel like who could be the most improved player.
Hey boys, if you haven't learned anything from this, hop on the Orioles train. It is a good train to hop on. It's not a bandwagon because they're not good. Hop on that train before they get good. Dark horse team, ladies and gentlemen. You guys talked about it. Kansas City Royals.
Kansas City Royals.
Give me the Royals, baby. All right, yeah.
Is that what you have too?
I got the Royals.
Yeah,
you got the Royals.
I have the Royals.
All right, everybody's got the
baby.
Royals.
Hop on that Royals train. No, we're talking about the Orioles train. Get on that Royals train. They're
One
gonna
train
be good this year.
Yeah, one train to not hop on is the worst team. Let's say it on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
I got the A's.
Athletics, yeah.
Give me the A's.
No,
I have
not the White Sox.
the
Nice one.
Chicago White Sox.
I could see it. I could see that as well.
Now,
I mean, the A's did improve a little bit.
They have nothing going. There's the Las Vegas mayor has said multiple times, try to find a home in Oakland. They don't even want the A's. Yeah, I think the A's are the worst team. They got nothing going for them.
Yeah, I think you take Dylan Cease and Tim Anderson away from the Chicago White Sox, and what are they? They are nothing. I think this is a team who won't score runs and won't protect home plate. So,
but they got assets from the trades. The A's don't have any.
I think they got assets. I don't think they got guys who are going to make an immediate impact.
Yeah.
But you have to think also about Luis Robert. If he has a really good year, he could lead this team. I mean, they're going to be last in the division regardless. I don't see them doing anything major, but I feel like he could help them come to maybe, I don't know, 30 games under 500 instead of 40.
Robert's a good player. Like, I want you to name one person on the Oakland A's other than Esther Ruiz, who's a young guy, who is at the caliber of Luis Robert. There's nobody on that team. I see the White Sox being bad. I see the A's being worse. All right, that is it for the AL. On to the NL. Alright, and now we will be on to the National League, and we'll be previewing this, and we'll start right off with the division winners in the NL East. I've got kind of an obvious pick, the Braves. It's a pretty easy pick. I mean, this team is stacked from top to bottom. They got an MVP candidate in Ronald Acuna. I struggle to find a weak link on this team. I mean, I question pitching every year, and then they have a plethora of that. And then you can turn to Spencer Strider as the ace of this team, a guy who's looked great during spring training. There's tremendous upside to the Braves, too, with some of the young guys they got. They have a great farm system, and they got money. They got some cheap contracts, so I think they're a threat to go even further than just winning the division. But for now, I have the Braves winning the National League East.
Yeah, I got the same thing. I got the Braves out there in the East winning it. I mean, it's a pretty obvious pick. I think that's what most people have. Like you said, they got a lot of guys on cheap contracts, so they can afford to bring in some more expensive guys. And I see them going after a couple bullpen arms at the deadline, maybe someone like Camilo Doval, or who knows, maybe just someone to close out that bullpen. Because I don't think Raisel Iglesias is, honestly,
he's not great.
He's a solid closer, but he's not a top tier team. And when you're in the World Series and you need that one out, you got to go to someone you can rely on. And if they can get a bullpen arm, I think it might be over.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you pair a guy like Ronald Acuna with a starter like Spencer Strider, you have at least one win every series. I think that match is going to be something that's scary to other teams. Also, kind of a lack of competition in the division. I think you have a decent Mets team and a solid Phillies team, but other than that, there's not too much else to stop them. And I see them going past just the division.
Yeah, so now on to a more tricky division. The NL Central is up for grabs, in my opinion, this year. We've got 4 teams that really have a good chance of making a deep run if they can get some assets, trade at the deadline. Right now, I got the Cincinnati Reds. Kind of a process of elimination. I think the Cubs, if they would sign a starting pitcher other than Justin Steele, would have a great chance. If they would have a bullpen arm that I could trust day in, day out, they would have a chance. And you see the Pirates, they haven't done much the last couple of years. I think the Reds just have tremendous upside to this team. We saw what they did in that stretch last September, and they made a run. They were always in the mix last year. People didn't realize it because there were teams overshadowing them. This is a team with a lot of young stars and some veterans that can hold it together. I mean, if Ellie De La Cruz can recreate that magic that he had when he came up, I think this team has a chance to show off the young talent that they have and win the division that is truly just up for grabs.
Yeah, I think that the Cubs do have a chance, the Reds, but I do have the Cubs coming away with this division this year. It's honestly, it could go either way. I could see the Pirates making a move for the division, but I feel like the Cubs, with the addition, obviously, of, in my opinion, the best manager in the league, Craig Counsell, to that team, and it's going to really rely on, I feel like they're starting pitching this year. They have Justin Steele, who was a Cy Young candidate up until the end last year. Kyle Hendricks is getting a little bit old, but he's got a little magic left, I think. And then they got a guy that they signed this year, Shoto Imanaga from Japan. And I feel like the season's really going to depend on him, and if he can have a really good breakout year. If he can come into the MLB and adapt to these hitters, and show what he's got and he can play well, I feel like the Cubs have a chance to go much farther than just winning the division.
Yeah, in the Central with minimal bias, I have the Milwaukee Brewers. I think that the talent in the farm system makes lack of any liability. I think they have someone who can replace everyone if anything were to go wrong. But I don't think that's even going to be necessary. I see this as a team who has young talent matched with some veterans in Rhys Hoskins, a great addition this offseason. I think the biggest question mark is the pitching staff, bullpen, and starting rotation. With a mix of injuries and trades, I think that could make this division a little more interesting, but I don't really see a weak link in this division. I see everyone with a pretty equal skill set. I mean, you see even a decent Pirates team who has been a team that hasn't been very competitive in the last couple of years. I mean, you see a shift to everyone being pretty solid and this being one of the best divisions in the National League.
Yeah, there is not one bad team in the National League Central.
Yeah,
all
really...
teams have a great chance to make a decent push for the division. And in the NL West, I think this is going to come down to two teams, kind of like last year, the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. I have the Dodgers. We've seen this team really just make move after move after move. I think the decision with Shohei's contract to push all that money off and allow for cap space while he's there, it's a very win-now move, and I think this team can win now. The one question is, you're paying Yamamoto a lot of money. He's blown his first 3 starts, including giving up 6 in the first inning to the Padres. I don't like that. I hope he can find his groove, but this Dodgers team is just stacked from top to bottom. They have 3 guys that can win MVP on that team, and one of them, spoiler for later, I think will win MVP. That team is just so stacked.
I mean, yeah, I got the Dodgers as well. It's an all-star team. This year, I feel like it's really going to be on their pitching, and they've got good pitching. They've got Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who struggled a little bit to start, but I feel like he's going to fall into things a little bit and get a little bit better. Tyler Glasnow, we know the skill is there. He's got probably the best curveball I've ever seen. It's about if he can stay healthy, and the Dodgers have been able to keep people healthy, I think. And I think if he's able to stay healthy throughout the entire year, he's a candidate for the Cy Young. Bobby Miller, another young guy coming up through the prospect system. The Dodgers, they just know what they're doing when it comes to pitching. They bring up guys, they help guys, they fix guys, and they've just been able to really develop a lot of young stars. And then you got guys like Walker Buehler, who's not going to start on the season. He's on the injured list right now, and Clayton Kershaw also on the injured list. But when those guys come back, I feel like this is one of, if not the best pitching system in all of baseball. And the bullpen's great too, with your back end guy being Evan Phillips, who is one of the better closers in the league.
Yeah, I also have the Dodgers here. I think this is one of my favorite divisions to watch. I think everyone but the Rockies is going to make it interesting, but I think the Dodgers will run away with it. I see the original issues from Yoshinobu Yamamoto being kind of a Alek Manoah type of role. I think he's a guy who, we've seen him, he's a great pitcher. He's just going through a little bit of a fluke right now, and once he works through that, he might not be their number 1 guy, but I think he will be a solid starter and above average arm. Also, I think with this team, you see guys that are able to do it all. I think Mookie Betts playing the infield, at least to start the year, makes it interesting. I think we may see Gavin Lux make a return as he figures out his issues with throwing. But all around, I don't see a weak link on this team. I think they have multiple all-stars, and the bullpen is great with additions like Joe Kelly, who's been with the club before. I think the atmosphere in this clubhouse is just amazing, and guys like Julio Urias, who really just show that they can do it consistently year after year and don't get many looks because of how talented this team truly is. So I think this is a team that's going to run away with it, despite being an interesting division, especially with the addition of Blake Snell to the Giants.
Yeah, I was going to say the Giants, they're looking pretty good right now. I would watch out. I mean, the back end of that bullpen, if they can get into the 6th inning winning, and you got the Rogers twins and Camilo Doval, watch out, because they're not going to lose many games if they're winning in the 6th.
Yeah, bullpens are playing a very integral role, and I think you look at a team like my wildcard team in the East, the Phillies. This is a team that's always had a good bullpen. They've always had good pitching. And for some reason, Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber, they're not bad. Like, they never stay bad. They're always good. Like, Kyle Schwarber as a leadoff hitter was one of the most questionable decisions at first. It is a very, very good move. Very rarely do you see a guy who hits .215 leading off. But when that guy gets hot, you don't want to be in that in that firing hole as a pitcher. It's a lineup. Once again, it is incredibly dangerous on many levels. I find it tough, in an NL East that really is just tough. But you look at pitchers, you got Jose Alvarado, Aaron Nola, who is very underrated, Gregory Soto, Ranger Suarez, Zach Wheeler. It's a stacked team from top to bottom. And even, you just look at the roster, and it's so good. They got Whit Merrifield in the offseason, who's still a good asset to have. This is a very, very good team, and I find it hard to bet against them.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Phillies in the playoffs as well. I don't think they're going to be the number one wildcard team, just because they're going to have a little bit of regression. I mean, JT Realmuto is just another year older. Bryce Harper, we all know what he can do. He's a dog. He's awesome. Bryson Stott, I see him taking a little bit of regression from the amazing year he had last year. And then you got their outfield, which is so-so. It's all right. And like you said, Kyle Schwarber, who's a big boomer bust guy. He's going to strike out or go 450. It's what he does. It's what he's done his whole career. And I'm interested to see what this team can bring.
Yeah, I've also got the Phillies. I think this season, it's a bold statement, but I think a lot of the atmosphere of this team is going to depend on Kyle Schwarber. I think he's a guy he is a big run producer, and if he doesn't produce runs, they are a team who gets a lot of guys on base, but don't have a lot of big drivers aside from Castellanos, Harper, and Schwarber. I think that I'm interested to see Harper in the infield because I think this is a very exciting outfield, and I think this is a team that can just bring it all together with an amazing pitching staff to win a lot of games.
Yeah, and if that outfield can break out and really show what they've got, you got Brandon Marsh out there, who's obviously a great defensive piece, hasn't been much of an offensive producer so far in his career, but if this outfield can break out, they might rival the Braves for the division.
So now we'll go on to the wildcard team in the NL Central, and once again, it's so hard to predict. You could go with any of these teams. I have the Brewers. I think this is a team that has potential. They have a lot of young players. I think Jackson Chourio is going to be very good. But a guy that doesn't get talked about enough is Joey Ortiz. This is a guy that can play multiple positions in the infield. He'll be playing second fiddle to Jackson Chourio this entire season, and I think Jackson Chourio is going to have a great season. There's more to this team, though, even after the Corbin Burns trade. Freddie Peralta flew under the radar last year. Second half of the season, a sub-250 ERA. He didn't lose. This is a team that, even without Devin Williams, I think has an opportunity to bring some of their minor league pitchers up and have a chance in the bullpen without their closer for the first, quarter of the season, I think. But once the NL Central can go anyway. I mean, this is it's up for grabs this year. It is the most up for grabs division in the entire league.
And may I add, with the Brewers, I think DL Hall is one of the most exciting arms the Brewers have had in years. I mean, that guy has just absolutely disgusting off speed, and he knows how to work batters. I think he could be one of the best arms that we've seen on the Brewers in a while.
And who knows, with the Brewers pitching developmental system, this guy could be a Cy Young candidate in a few years. They just make something out of nothing.
It's kind of like the Orioles. You can talk for ages about this farm system and just how good it is. The number of players is second to none.
Yeah. Out of the Central, first of all, I don't really think that a wild card team is going to come out of the Central this year. But if there is going to be one, I do have to pick the Reds. I mean, obviously I had the Cubs as my division winner. This Reds team I feel like they just scream breakout. They're the team that can do it if they can really have a few guys break out. You got, obviously, Elly De La Cruz, one of the better young players in baseball. He's going to break out this year. I think he's going to have a really strong start to the year and kind of simmer down as he did last year. But I feel like this team just has the ability to make a push with their pitching, too. They got Andrew Abbott, always a little bit shaky, but if he can get it figured out, he's gonna bring this team far. And then their closer, Alexis Diaz, one of the better closers in the league. And I feel like if they can just get to those last few innings ahead, they're going to win a lot of games this year.
May I add Hunter Green?
Yeah, Hunter Green.
A guy that is young and he's got potential to be a good pitcher in the starter role or the bullpen.
I feel like he's going to be, I think he's not their opening day starter, but he'll probably be their day 2 starter.
Yep.
But if he can really break out and show what he has this year, it's going to be tough to stop him.
Yeah, as Ben said, I think this is one of the most unpredictable divisions in baseball, but I kind of have a toss-up between the Reds and the Cubs. I think that's two solid teams who are going to compete not only with everyone else, but with each other. I'm very interested to see those games where those two take each other on. But I think the Reds are a team who's going to be an all-or-nothing type of crew. I think that they will win a lot of games or win not very many. I think they're very streaky, and I think that's going to continue this year. So if they get hot at the right time, who knows what could happen. We could see them going deep into the playoffs, or we could see them not in them at all.
I just want to have a disclaimer. I'm not a Brewers hater. I'm wearing a Brewers sweatshirt right now. I just feel like with all the young guys on that team, it's going to be really hard for them to figure it all out throughout the year. There's going to be a lot of streakiness on this team.
Yeah, the new manager and Pat Murphy, it's going to be called into question. I think the NL Central is so unpredictable, and you look at a division like the NL West, which is also pretty hard for me to predict. The Dodgers are a clear first place as of right now. I have the Diamondbacks coming in second, and this was a toss-up between them and the Padres, a team that doesn't get talked about enough, and a team that, if they get hot at the right time, has assets, and a team like the Giants, who acquired Blake Snell. So you have Blake Snell and Camilo Doval, the bookends of your pitching. Where I get called into question with that team is the hitting. But with the Diamondbacks, this is a team that won the NL last year, and they came close to winning the World Championship. They're young, and they're only going to get better with time, and Corbin Carroll just impressed me so much. An MVP candidate in his first year. It doesn't come along easily, and this is the Diamondbacks team that if they can get a guy like Paul Sewald going, if they can get some more starters in that rotation, I think has a chance to maybe even rival the Dodgers, because that team is injury prone as good as they are.
Yeah, so I feel like this was honestly the toughest one to predict, the West wild card. And this is, in my opinion, the division that's going to produce the two other wild card teams opposed from the Phillies. And I've got it as the D-backs or the Padres. We've talked about the Diamondbacks already. We know that they're good. They made it to the World Series last year. They're a great young team. I just want to talk about the Padres for a little bit. And even with the loss of Juan Soto this year, they still look amazing. They're going to have one of the better rotations in baseball, led by Joe Musgrove. They're going to have one of the best offenses in baseball, probably the best in the NL this year. And one guy that we all need to focus on is Jackson Merrill, who's coming up through this farm system, who's going to be a dog for them. He's going to replace that Juan Soto that they missed, and he's going to have to lead them for them to make a run this year. But another team that it could be, honestly, this entire division other than the Rockies could make the playoffs. It's the Giants. I mean, their pitching, it's so good. I already talked about their bullpen. They have Logan Webb. They have Blake Snell. They have Robbie Ray. They have Alex Cobb. Those first four guys, once Robbie Ray gets back, are amazing. They're amazing starters, and their bullpen's solid. I mean, it's going to come down to their offense, and can they score enough runs? And is Matt Chapman going to give enough power on this team for them to be able to produce, and then they can get some wins?
Yeah, may I add, I'm done with the Ha-Seong Kim disrespect. He is so good. He is so good. Like, this guy is genuinely, he may be the most underrated player in the league on a team that is not very good, which just shocks me. He hits for average. He's like Luis Rise, but
with a little power.
Yeah, with good defense too. He won the gold. I think he won the Gold Glove last year.
Yeah, Kim is really good on a team in the Padres that could make a run.
Yeah. Originally on my little cheat sheet here, I do have the Diamondbacks, but I think there's one big addition that is going to change my pick. I think the Dylan Cease trade is going to convert me to the Padres here. I think that is a pickup that is just absolutely beautiful. I saw him going to a team more like the Braves, but the addition of him to this already amazing pitching staff, as Ronnie mentioned, is absolutely dangerous. I also think that we see a lot of underrated and hidden talents here. I mean, as Ben said, Ha-Seong Kim, a guy who, if you're good enough to move Fernando Tatis to the outfield, you must be a pretty dang good player. So I'm excited to see where they can go. I think the loss of Juan Soto, naturally, as an MVP candidate, is a huge loss, but this team is still going to be extremely competitive in maybe the most competitive division in baseball.
Yeah, and as you said, imagine Dylan Cease on the Braves. A 1-2 punch of Dylan Cease and Spencer Strider in the playoffs would just be awful for opposing teams. And that's talking about the playoffs. Let's go to the league champ. I have maybe an obvious pick, but the Dodgers. I would love for it to not be the Dodgers, but I don't see a world where this team with this much talent and this much backup talent too. Like, you're going to have Austin Barnes riding your bench. You might have Gavin Lux riding your bench for all we know. This team is as deep as they go. Pitching, never in question. The hitting, never in question. You had Shohei to this team. Like, this team has endless amounts of money, and they're just that good to win the division and the league this year.
Yeah, I have to disagree with you, Ben. I think it's going to be the Braves. The Dodgers have always had one of the best teams in baseball, and they have always found a way to choke it away. I mean, you look at last year, and they lost to the Diamondbacks in the 2 games that they played them, in the 3 games they played them. You have Kershaw giving up 5 or 6 runs before he even records an out. It's going to be that kind of collapse again this year that I feel like is going to hurt them. They don't have the best defense in the league. They got an all right bullpen, but it's not deep enough to give them 4 or 5 innings.
They have money.
They've got the money. They've got the money. They got the money if they need to go get someone, if they need to make a trade. But I feel like if this team is like 1 or 2 injuries away from being out of contention. So I do have the Braves this year, and I just feel like the Braves, it's gonna be their pitching, honestly. Their offense is amazing. We already know that. But their rotation, you got Max Fried. He's pretty solid. I think we can all agree. You got Spencer Strider, who's going to be a Cy Young candidate this year. Charlie Morton, who's getting old, but is always going to give you a few innings. And then Chris Sale, one of the more underrated pickups this offseason.
Great in spring training.
Has looked great. And his problem, again, it's being healthy. He hasn't been healthy. We know he's got the stuff, but he just can't stay healthy. And the Braves can give him, he's not going to have to throw 300 innings this year. He's going to be able to take a break, take some rest, and he's going to come back. And I feel like he's really going to revive his career this year.
Could they put him in the long reliever role? Is a question I've always had.
I could see that as well.
He gets injured, but if you are looking for that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th,
a guy who can go 2 to 3 innings.
Yeah, and especially on a day where your bullpen might have been stretched after an extra inning game, Chris Sale might be your guy. That, as you said, very underrated pickup.
And I feel like in the playoffs too, when rotation doesn't really matter, you're bringing in guys to win that game. That's a really good option to bring in Chris Sale out of the bullpen.
Yeah, I think you can make a solid argument for the Dodgers here, but as they say, guys who run fast get hurt fast, and guys who throw fast blow out fast. So I have the Braves here. I think that there's too much liability with the Dodgers. Guys who are showing that they might not be as good as we thought they were, guys who are getting small injuries in spring training that are making me fear them getting hurt even more. And also, even if both teams are completely healthy, I think the Braves can compete with the Dodgers in any way. I think the staff is absolutely amazing, despite relieving being a small question mark. I think that this team has no problem producing runs with a top 5 most underrated player in the MLB. Ozzie Albies, a guy who's always on base, who Ronald Acuna can drive in anytime he's there. I mean, you have guys stealing 40-plus bags consistently, multiple guys on your team. I think Michael Harris is a guy who is going to break out this year. I'm just really excited to see this Braves team play. So chop, chop, chop.
And Ben, you're saying the Dodgers got the money. Look at the Braves. They've got a ton of guys on cheap contracts. I feel like this is going to be the NLCS, and it's going to go 7 games. But like Charlie said, I think the Braves are coming out on top.
Yeah. So let's move on to awards. MVP. We're going to stay on the Dodgers bandwagon, but probably not who you would think it would be. Freddie Freeman.
Ooh,
I like
so
it.
So you got, it's going to be a 3-horse race. You got Shohei, you got Mookie, you got Acuna. We all forget about Freddie Freeman, the legend
tower of
himself.
power.
This guy, he hits over 300 every year. He hits over 30 homers every year. A guy that very rarely gets injured, and on a team where he's going to get RBIs because he's going to be batting maybe behind Shohei, Mookie Betts, Gavin Lux, guys who are going to get on base. The Dodgers, I think if they stay healthy, an MVP will come out of that team. Freddie Freeman is going to be the guy this year.
You're saying we're forgetting people. We're forgetting Freddie Freeman. We're forgetting the best first baseman in the league. Bryce Harper is coming home with the MVP this year. Mark my words.
Bold take.
Look at his second half last year after he was fully healed from that injury. He went crazy. I feel like the power's going to come back this year. He only had 21 last year. Still a ton of homers. But I feel like he's going to go up for 40, 45. He's going to have a ton of RBIs with Trey Turner ahead of him. He's going to have a ton of hits. He's going to be crazy. And he's awesome on defense as well. Freddie Freeman, he's a solid defender. I think we can all agree. He's a Gold Glove candidate. Bryce Harper is the Gold Glover. Give me Bryce Harper for my MVP.
40 homers from Bryce Harper at this age would be very, very good.
Watch out for Bryce Harper.
I would love to see that happen. I don't see it happening.
Also, a Gold Glover in the outfield, not the infield, I might say.
He made improvements though last year.
He was an amazing outfielder in first base last year.
All right, let me hear you say it. Back to back. I've got Ronald Acuna. I mean, this guy is a generational talent, a guy you can't argue He can compete with anybody. I mean, the amount of bases he steals, he gets on first, which isn't too often because he's usually rounding all 4 bags. But when he is on first, he's on third, give him 3 pitches. You know, this guy, he's got the speed, he's got the defense, he's got the power, he's got it all. I don't see anyone competing with him this year.
It's been a while since you had a back-to-back MVP, because as a voter, you don't like voting back-to-back MVPs. But
yeah, the voter fatigue's going to play a big role if he's going to win.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do think, but I think he is also a guy with enough flash that the people love him and no one would be mad to see it.
And he has the potential to become so damn undeniable that he can have an even better, kind of like Aaron Judge, an even better season than last year. And I think that there is also potential for a Cy Young to come out of the Braves, because I got Spencer Strider winning Cy Young. I think this guy was phenomenal in the postseason, phenomenal regular season. He's going to be the captain of this rotation this year, and I don't think this needs much more explanation. He's just such a good pitcher.
Yeah, I feel like it could be a ton of guys. I mean, it's kind of like the AL where it's up between a lot of different guys. I have Strider as one of my favorites. I also have Logan Webb, who had a really underrated season last year. Kind of fell under the radar on the Giants team that was kind of struggling a little bit towards the end. But I feel like if the Giants are going to have a good year this year, which I do have them, I think they have a chance of making the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, it's going to be because of Logan Webb and that pitching staff. And Logan Webb will be the best pitcher, better than Blake Snell, who won the Cy Young last year.
Well, Logan Webb was my first fantasy baseball pitcher pick. He's so underrated, but now he's got Blake Snell on his team. So,
and that's the only thing. He could be a little bit overshadowed by Blake Snell, but I think he's going to be the guy in that rotation.
Yeah, I also have Spencer Strider like Ben. I think, as we know, he's developed a curveball this offseason. I think that is going to play such a big role in his arsenal. I mean, if you have to fear that curveball and that slider at the same time, when you know he can throw 98 right past you, I think that is a guy who you just have to be on your toes always when you're in the box. He's a guy who keeps you wondering what's going to happen next. I mean, he can go anywhere with any batter. If you have 2 strikes on you and Spencer Strider's on the mound, you better be scared.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of options for this next one, Rookie of the Year. It's going to be a 2-horse race. I know Jung-Hoo Lee is in this whole conversation.
Oh, boy.
I got Jackson Chourio. This guy has been the most highly touted prospect for some time now, and I think he's going to have a starring role on the Brewers this year, something Jung-Hoo Lee may not have on the Giants. So I got Jackson Chourio winning Rookie of the Year for the sole reason he's going to be. He made the opening day roster. He's going to be a star on this team.
Yeah, give me Chourio. He's gonna win it this year. They're calling him the next Acuna. Give me Jackson Chourio all the way.
I have been waiting to talk about this entire episode. Jung-Hoo Lee is the man who is going to take home the trophy at the end of the day. He has been playing in the KBO, debatably the second best baseball league in the entire world. And let me read
Not debatably.
And let me read you these past few averages. 324, 355, 336, 333, 360, 349, and last year 318. This is a guy who just mashes. He has the shortest and sweetest swing I've seen in a long time, and he is just going to damage baseballs the entire year. He's got the power, he's got the speed, he's got the contact. This is a guy that if he develops the way we hope he does, he is going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah. I mean, Rookie of the Year is always unpredictable. I mean, who would have thought O'Neal and Ellie De La Cruz would have just come up and made that impact last year? Most improved player. Give me Paul Sewald. This guy. Okay, so people are going to be like, whoa, well, he was the closer for the team that made the World Series. He was not good in the regular season. He got traded off of the Mariners because he was just not good. He walks way too many people. And if he can get that walk rate down, just like Juan Soto's going to get that K rate down, he can be most improved player on a team that needs that bullpen.
Give me Gavin Lux. I feel like we're all hopping on the Dodgers bandwagon. The Dodgers are looking really good this year. Gavin Lux, he's had some defensive struggles so far in the infield this year, but I feel like coming back from injury, coming back from that horrible season the year before, he's gonna break out this year, and he's gonna have a really good year.
Yeah. I have kind of a sleeper here. I forgot Michael Harris of the Atlanta Braves. I think he's a guy who has been a role player the past couple of years, but I think this is going to be a breakout year. I think he's a guy who's kind of been living in Acuna's shadow, but I think he's coming up. I'm not being as good, but nearly as good. He is amazing in the outfield. Having seen him in person, he's a guy who just flies around the bases. I don't see really any flaw. His swing is consistent. He doesn't strike out very much. He's always on base. I see this as a guy who can just improve and be a key role player. allowing Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna to be the guys who drive him in. I mean, I see this guy having a ridiculous amount of runs this year, possibly leading the league.
Yeah, and again, most improved player can really just go to anyone who had a bad year last year and is trending up.
Yeah, so we go from players to teams. A dark horse team in the National League may be a pick that most people disagree with. I did not have them in my division winners a wild card. I got the Padres. So in an NL West that could get very crowded very fast. It's going to be a very tough division. I got the Padres, who I don't have right now, but they're a team that could make a run. Even with the loss of Juan Soto and Blake Snell, I think this is a team that still has tremendous offense and tremendous pitching. I think this team is well suited to make a good playoff run with Tatis, Kim. Please go home. Talk about Ha-Seong Kim. He's so good. And Machado. It's a good team.
Yep.
Yeah, for my dark horse, I do have the Brewers. I didn't have them winning the division. I don't even have them in the playoffs. But if everything goes right for this team, if all those young stars break out this year, if their pitching can do what we know they can do, this team has the potential to be one of the better teams in this league. So yeah, give me the Brewers.
There's an even darker horse on that team, Pat Murphy.
Pat Murphy, okay.
Yeah, I also have the Milwaukee Brewers, but another team I want to mention is the New York Mets. Yep. They have made so many offseason moves that we can't guarantee who they're going to be this year. Their identity as a team is obviously going to shift. Additions of guys who are going to play smaller roles but have been good in the past, like guys like Tyrone Taylor, who can fill those gaps and just be average. They don't need them to be great. They have the stars in Pete Alonso. They just need guys to fill the gaps so no one on that team is bad.
And Tyrone Taylor, I think he's going to have a starting job this year, correct?
I believe so.
He on the Brewers, he didn't really have a position. They kind of were forced into trading him because of all the plethora of young outfielders in that farm system. So for this Mets team, he's going to have a sustainable job. He's going to be their everyday outfielder. So maybe he could be a candidate for most improved player.
Yeah, and then we also talk about the Milwaukee Brewers. I say this mostly because of the coaching staff. I am so excited to see this coaching staff. Having talked to Pat Murphy in the past, I think he is a just baseball genius. I think the way he thinks and the way he makes moves are just going to be a factor that puts this team above and beyond. And paired with Ricky Weeks, a guy who has years and years of big league experience, not only in the MLB, but with the Brewers, is just going to make this clubhouse absolutely thrive.
Yeah, now on to our final category, worst team in the National League. I got the Nationals. It's between them and the Rockies. Rockies have at least a couple guys in Nolan Jones, Charlie Blackmon that can be good. There's a lot of young guys on the Nats. I just don't see them making big of a splash this year.
Yeah, I feel like it could be the Nationals. I have the Rockies personally. The Rockies just don't have enough pitching. And when you're playing in Mile High Stadium, you're going to have some pitching. Otherwise, you're just going to give up a home run every single at-bat. And I feel like that's what's going to happen to the Rockies this year. Their starters are going to get blown up. Their offense isn't going to put up enough runs. And they have the potential to win a few games here and there. But I feel like the Nationals, if they can have a couple guys like James Wood break out, they can have a pretty solid year.
Yeah, I have the Rockies also as the worst team. I think they say that hitting in that stadium is an advantage until you have no pitching. And have to play all your home games there. I think they are going to score a decent amount because they do have some power bats in their lineup, but they are just going to give up way too many runs to win a decent amount of games.
Yeah, it's an NL that's very much up for grabs, and this will round out our MLB season preview. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see you for our next podcast, previewing the NHL and NBA playoffs, and we can't wait for that. So thank you for listening to Section 101. See you next time.